What's up, YouTube? Welcome to Cabo Reacts. My first video, this is the first reaction I'm doing on this channel. My main channel is 100K Cabo. That's where, I vlog, everything else. But this is my reaction channel. This is where all my reactions go, obviously, because it's a reaction channel. But this video is called Convict Who Killed Everyone in Court to Avoid Prison. It sounded real interesting. It sounds like it might be a good first video to get into. I don't have a green screen right now because I'm moving pretty soon in the next like 2 weeks. So yeah, I'm starting to get everything situated for that. But this is the first reaction video I'm dropping. Hopefully this is good. It sounds like it's a good video. Let's get right into it.
This is the story of Brian Nicholson, a convicted rapist and murderer who did the most unthinkable thing in a court of law, killing people. The entire drama surrounding his actions spawned a 2015 thriller called The Captive as a best-selling book. Unlikely Angel from one of the victims, Ashley Smith. Here's his story. Brian Nichols.
Hold on. Before we get all the way into it, let me know if this is a good setup for my camera and the video, because to me it looks like it's good, but I want it to be the best for the viewers, obviously.
Early life. Brian Gene Nichols was born on December 10th, 1971, and became infamous for his heinous crimes on March 11th, 2005. He was on trial for rape when he managed to escape from custody and went on a killing spree. The news of this horrific event spread like wildfire, and a massive manhunt was launched in metro Atlanta. Nichols was apprehended 26 hours later, and the prosecution charged him with 54 crimes he committed during his escape.
How do people how the hell do people escape from prison? That's what I really want to know. How? That's just crazy to me.
He was found guilty on all counts on November 7th, 2008. To understand what led Brian Nichols to act the way he did, we have to go back to the past.
Those crimes were committed on March 11th, 2005 at the Fulton County Superior Courthouse. And the evidence will show that as he sat at that table with his lawyer, there was a plan devised by a conniving, cold-blooded, remorseless, evil, and extremely dangerous mind.
Not much is known about Brian Gene Nichols' early life, except that he grew up in a middle-class family. He graduated from the Cardinal Gibbons School in Baltimore, Maryland in 1989. Nichols attended Kutztown University of Pennsylvania from 1989 to 1990, where he played linebacker on their football team. His massive physical presence and martial arts skills earned him a reputation as someone to be careful around. But court documents reveal that Nichols had a troubled past at Kutztown, with at least 3 arrests during his short stay there. In 1990, he was arrested and charged with terroristic threats, harassment, simple assault, and disorderly conduct in relation to an incident that took place at a dining hall in a university.
Alright, so look, 2 minutes into the video, right? They say he killed everyone in court to avoid prison. Right now, drop below in the comments, what do you think he did to kill all these people, if he really killed all these people in court? I don't know. I personally, how? I'm just worried. I'm not worried. I don't know why I just say I'm worried. I'm wondering, how is it even possible for you to kill people in court? I don't know. You let me know down in the comments what you think he did.
Nichols pleaded guilty to the 2 lesser charges, and the others were dropped. The following year, Nichols got arrested for misdemeanor criminal mischief, criminal trespassing, and disorderly conduct twice in 1 month. However, those charges were dropped. Basically, he was always getting into trouble. Nichols went to Newberry College from 1992 to 1993 and played football there, but was kicked off the football team for stealing from a dorm room during that time. After dropping out of school, Nichols moved to Georgia in 1995 and worked for Hewlett-Packard for 8 years as a Unix systems engineer. Nichols' last employment was as a computer engineer for a logistics subsidiary of Atlanta-based shipping giant UPS. Nichols started doing relatively well. He earned a six-figure income and regularly attended church. However, things fell apart in 2004. Nichols and his then-girlfriend, Sonia Meredith, broke up, and he found out that she was dating Chris Rowell, a minister at their church. On 2 occasions in August, Nichols confronted the minister outside the woman's apartment. During the confrontations, Nichols threatened to commit suicide. In response, his ex-girlfriend sent an email to his mother saying, "Things between Brian and I are spiraling out of control."
No, listen, like, this is a serious thing. Like, why do girls and guys both do that? Like, when you break up with somebody, like, they say they're gonna commit suicide or something. Like, what's up with that? Like, that, I don't know why. Like, I don't know. Like, why do you do it? It's so many girls out in this world. There's so many guys out in this world. Like, a girl could go find another guy just like that. Just like that. A girl could go find another guy. A guy could go find another girl. It's too many out in the world to be wanting to die over one. Like, come on now.
Then, on August 19th, Nichols returned to her apartment, and according to the woman's testimony to the police, he forced his way into her home, bound her with duct tape at gunpoint, and raped her. Nichols was arrested and held without bail. His first trial, which was held in front of Judge Barnes, began on February 21st, 2005. He was charged with rape, aggravated assault with intent to rape, burglary, aggravated sodomy, false imprisonment, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime. During his first trial, things just didn't go as planned. The tension had been rising, with Nichols telling people in the courthouse that, "I'm not going to go lying down," when he learned he would be retired after a hung jury in the first case. The district attorney's office received several warnings from Nichols' friends and family, telling them that he may try to escape. One friend specifically told the prosecutors that Nichols had intentions of fleeing, and even asked him to place a credit card in the suit jacket pocket he would wear.
My fault for pausing. I'm gonna try not to pause as much because I know people don't like that. But this is not from my screen. This is from the video. This little gray little stuff right there, that's not from me. That's from the video. But my fault. I'm gonna try to make this one of the last ones because this is a 36-minute video.
During his court sentence. Also, Nichols' mother sent an email to the Fulton County Sheriff's Office stating that her son might make an attempt to seize an officer's weapon. Despite these warnings, the county didn't take the situation seriously. Even Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard called Nichols' outbursts entirely normal and simply a routine drumbeat of jailhouse chatter. But 2 days before the crime spree, deputies escorting Nichols from the courthouse to his jail cell noticed something in his shoes. They found 2 sharp shanks, common jailhouse weapons fashioned out of metal, which possibly came from a door hinge. During the retrial, Nichols was not only violent, but also made fun of the prosecutors. He mocked Assistant District Attorney Gail Abramson and Assistant District Attorney Ash Joshi by saying, "You're doing a much better job this time," indicating that he knew his case was not going well. Judge Barnes took notice of this behavior and called for a meeting with the lawyers to discuss additional security measures before Nichols' scheduled testimony that Friday. The prosecution was about to call its last witness, and the jury deliberations were just around the corner. Nichols was facing life imprisonment if convicted. Shooting and escape. A sheriff's deputy named Cynthia Hall was brutally attacked by Brian Nichols. Hall was responsible for escorting Nichols from a basement detention area to a holding cell on the 8th floor of the Fulton County Justice Tower. She was urged to get another deputy to go with her upstairs to the holding cell, but Hall insisted that she could handle Nichols alone. This would be a big mistake, as Hall did not require Nichols to wear leg shackles, even though he had been caught with door hinges hidden in his shoes the day before. Then, Nichols Nichols' reign of terror began. While in the holding cell, Nichols brutally attacked Deputy Hall, overpowered her, and took her gun belt, which included her radio and weapon magazines. He then locked her in the cell and armed himself with her Beretta .40 cal semi-automatic pistol. Nichols then made his way to the private chambers of Judge Roland W. Barnes, where he held several people at gunpoint, including case managers Susan Christie and Gina Clark Thomas, and attorney David Allman. He demanded to know where Judge Barnes was, and when Sergeant Grantley White, the court bailiff, entered the room, he too was met with an armed Nichols. Sergeant White tried to disarm Nichols, but was unsuccessful. Nichols then disarmed Sergeant White and forced him to handcuff the 3 other people in the room. However, Sergeant White was able to push an emergency button before being handcuffed, which alerted court security. Nichols allegedly said to Sergeant White, "Don't do nothing, Sarge. I've got nothing to lose," as a means to disarm Sergeant White. In an attempt to dispel the alarm, Nichols responded to dispatch on Sergeant White's radio, which raised suspicion among other deputies who didn't recognize his voice. Nichols then handcuffed Sergeant White and forced him into a bathroom before leaving the chambers. The situation had quickly escalated, leaving the staff in the chambers at the mercy of Nichols, who was now armed and dangerous. This incident caused significant injuries to Deputy Hall, who sustained brain injuries, facial fractures, and a large laceration to her forehead. Her condition was reported as critical, but she survived. When Brian Nichols left the chambers, he entered courtroom 8F through a door behind the judge's bench, where he found Judge Barnes presiding over motions in a civil trial. Nichols shot the judge at close range in the back of the head without the judge even knowing he was there. After shooting the judge, Nichols scanned the prosecution table and lowered the gun when he realized the assistant district attorneys he was looking for were not in the courtroom. Instead, he shot Julie Brando, the court reporter, in the head. Fortunately, Sergeant White, who had been forced into the bathroom, was able to access his radio and put out the first transmission, letting responding officers know that there had been shots fired, and gave a description of Nichols. Nichols then searched for his rape victim in a side room where witnesses were held before trial, but she was not present at the time. He then exited the courtroom and ran into an emergency stairwell where he was seen by Sergeant Hoyt Teasley, who had just arrived at work and was responding to the alarm before he could even put on his bulletproof vest or pick up a radio. Sergeant Teasley pursued Nichols down 7 flights of stairs, out of the old courthouse and onto Martin Luther King Drive. Nichols sounded a door alarm when he exited the building and fired several gunshots in the air, creating chaos on the crowded street. As Sergeant Teasley exited the building, Nichols pointed one of his guns at him and fired 2 shots before the deputy could even draw his own gun. Sergeant Teasley fell to the ground and Nichols fled. Unfortunately, Barnes and Brando died at the scene, and Sergeant Teasley was pronounced dead on arrival at Grady Memorial Hospital due to bleeding from a single gunshot wound to his abdomen. After Nichols shot and killed Judge Barnes and court reporter Julie Brando, he fled the courthouse and ran into the underground parking garage across the street. There, he proceeded to carjack at least 5 vehicles in his escape. Nichols' first carjacking victim was Deputy Solicitor General Dwayne Cooper, who was entering the parking garage. Nichols pointed his gun at Cooper and demanded he hands over his 2002 Mazda Tribute. Cooper complied, and Nichols drove away in the vehicle, speeding down Martin Luther King Boulevard. Larry McCrary, who works in the Fulton County Juvenile Court, saw Nichols fleeing and followed him as he turned onto Peachtree Street and then into a parking garage near Underground Atlanta. McCrary parked his vehicle to block the entrance and exit to the parking deck and flagged down 3 Atlanta police officers. After the officers went inside the parking deck, Nichols calmly walked out at an entrance down the street and approached a tow truck at the corner of Peachtree and Wall Streets. Nichols pointed his gun at the driver, Durante Franklin, and ordered him out. Nichols then sped off in the tow truck and traveled north briefly on Peachtree Street before turning onto Walton, a one-way street, heading the wrong way, and entering the Imperial parking garage on Cone Street. On the 4th floor of the garage, Nichols hijacked a 2004 Mercury Sable owned by Almeida Kilgo, an Atlanta Journal-Constitution software developer. He pointed his gun at her and demanded she move to the passenger seat. Kilgo froze, and Nichols said, "I'm not playing with you. Can't you see the blood on my hands?" He drove a short distance and stopped, telling her to get in the trunk. Fortunately, Kilgo was able to escape. After stealing several vehicles, Nichols abandoned his final car, a Honda, on the first level of the same parking deck from where it was reported stolen. Police suspected he may have abandoned the car after spotting an easier target, taking the owner with him to avoid being reported. However, police had difficulty determining if any missing persons or stolen vehicles were reported in the area because the NCAA Southeastern Conference basketball tournament was taking place at the Georgia Dome, and thousands of out-of-town visitors were in the area at the time. Security camera images taken inside the parking deck showed Nichols putting on a jacket taken from one of the stolen cars and disappearing on a lower level. Still, they did not reveal how he left the parking garage. The hunt for Nichols.
My whole thing is how, like, you would think a courtroom got more cops, and I mean, not a courtroom, but court in general, like courthouse would have more security, cops, whatever. How did he manage to do this that fast? Like, he got the gun from the one cop. She shouldn't have even went by herself. Like, they shouldn't even let her go by herself. That's on them. And then what else he did? How did he even get through the whole courthouse and get to the front exit, then get to the parking garage and get away? Like, that's bad. Like, that's bad. Oh my God.
Was so intense that he was featured on America's Most Wanted that night, and the manhunt expanded. Later in the day, the Fulton County District Attorney's Office announced that they had received a 911 call from someone claiming to be Nichols, in which he threatened to kill Assistant District Attorneys Gail Abramson and Ash Joshi, who were prosecuting his rape case. This search was one of the most intense and extensive in Atlanta's history. The manhunt and capture. The search for Nichols was in full swing, and the city was in a state of lockdown, with hundreds of officers on the streets and in the air searching for him. Georgia Governor Sonny Perdue announced a reward of around $65,000 for information leading to Nichols' arrest. The city of Atlanta was in a virtual lockdown, with hundreds of officers and cruisers and helicopters swarming the area in search of the suspect. Roadblocks were set up at major intersections in downtown and midtown, and more than 100 state troopers and officers from several agencies, including the FBI, were assisting in the search. Even off-duty police officers were helping out, and law enforcement cast a net outside the city. Patrol cars were positioned on median strips along I-75 and I-85, and public schools in the area were secured. The people inside the courthouse were not allowed to leave until around 11:30 a.m. Friday, after authorities locked everyone inside and thoroughly checked the building. Atlanta Police Chief Richard Pennington announced that it was believed that Nichols took a MARTA train north. It was later learned that Nichols traveled on foot from the Centennial parking garage to the 5 Points MARTA station, which is less than a block from the parking deck. Police later located a witness, Michael Taylor, who said she was on the train with Nichols that morning. She was the only person on a MARTA train when Nichols boarded at the 5 Points station shortly after the shootings. Taylor said Nichols was wearing a jacket that didn't fit, no shirt, and he was sweating profusely. Taylor did not recognize Nichols because she had not seen any news coverage that morning. Surveillance video was later recovered, showing Nichols walking through the station at 9:57 a.m. On the evening of March 11, 2005, Brian Nichols attacked two people, Iman Aiden and her boyfriend Warren, at the Summit at Lenox Apartments in Buckhead, Atlanta, before killing Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent David G. Willem at his nearby home. The following morning, on March 12th, the body of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent David G. Willem was discovered in his home located at 962 Cantor Road. Willem had been working alone in the bathroom of his home, which was under construction, when he was shot and killed. It was reported that he had been robbed because his pockets were turned inside out, and some loose change was found on the floor. His wallet, gun, and blue Chevrolet pickup truck were also stolen. But the next moments and the next person he kidnaps would be a turning point for Atlanta: Nichols and the kidnapped. After a massive chase, Nichols was spotted at the Bridgewater Apartments in Duluth, Georgia, 27 miles north of Atlanta. He held resident Ashley Smith hostage for several hours. He had a gun pointed at her head and said, "If you do what I say, I won't kill you." During their time together, Ashley shared her story of losing her husband and read to him from the Bible and The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. This apparently touched Nichols. According to law enforcement sources, Nichols eventually released the woman and instructed her to follow him in her car so he could get rid of the stolen pickup truck. The woman complied and drove Nichols back to the apartment. It was at this point he offered her money to go see her child.
He handed me some money that he had in his pocket, and then I just left. I remember walking out the door, my knees were still shaking as I got to the car, and I thought, this is too good to be true. Surely he's going to come out and shoot me. But I got in the car and made it around the corner and immediately breathed a sigh of relief.
Once they arrived, Nichols surrendered quietly to police after seeing the SWAT team that had been dispatched following the woman's 911 call at around 9:50 a.m.
Brian Nichols came to my house at 2 o'clock last night.
Finally, after 26 hours, Nichols surrendered peacefully to the Gwinnett Police SWAT team. Law enforcement officials recovered the stolen fire.
So he did all this. He killed all these people. He ran away from the police. Not just doing that in 26 hours, but he surrendered peacefully. Like, how did you do all this and then you just peacefully surrendered? I don't know, maybe it's something I'm missing.
Firearms and Agent Willem's wallet inside the apartment. Willem's Chevrolet truck was found about 2 miles from the apartment at a nearby industrial complex. It's unclear what made Nichols release the woman and surrender peacefully, especially considering his violent behavior during the previous 26 hours. Nonetheless, the woman's decision to call 911 likely ended a series of dangerous and unfortunate events. Even Atlanta Police Chief Richard Pennington admitted surprise that Nichols surrendered peacefully, but authorities were relieved that the ordeal had come to a non-violent end. In her book, Unlikely Angel, The Untold Story of the Atlanta Hostage Hero, Smith revealed that she was struggling with a methamphetamine addiction at the time of the hostage situation. She refused to use drugs with Nichols, instead choosing to share her faith and personal experiences to convince him to turn himself in. In the book, she also reveals that she showed Nichols the physical and emotional consequences of drug abuse by lifting her tank top to reveal a 5-inch scar on her torso, resulting from a car wreck caused by drug-induced psychosis. After being held hostage for several hours, Nichols asked Smith to follow him in her car while he drove Agent Willem's stolen pickup truck away from the apartment complex. Smith complied with this request, fearing that he would kill more people if she did not do what he said. She even cooked breakfast for him when they returned to her apartment. However, Smith eventually convinced Nichols to let her leave to go see her daughter. She then placed the 911 call, which led to Nichols' peaceful surrender to the police. Despite being hailed as a hero by many, Smith gave credit to God for helping her through the ordeal. For her, the real heroes were the judicial and law enforcement officials who gave their lives and risked their lives to bring the situation to an end. As a result, she was rewarded for her brave actions. She received a total of $70,000 in reward money, which came from various sources. The U.S. Marshal's Office gave her $25,000, while the FBI gave her $20,000. The Georgia Governor's Office also rewarded her $10,000, while the Georgia Sheriff's Association, Georgia Fraternal Order of Police, and the City of Atlanta each gave her $5,000. Prior to that, she had already received $2,500 from the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police. This reward money was a token of appreciation for Ashley's bravery and quick thinking. The confession, indictment, and family reaction. After Nichols was arrested, he was initially held on a federal charge of possession of a firearm by a person under indictment at an FBI field office in Decatur, Georgia. Later on, he was transferred to the Atlanta Police Station, where Atlanta Police Detective Vincent Velasquez interviewed him. Nichols confessed to his crimes in a 3.5-hour statement he made to the police on video, without any lawyer present. After about 2 hours in custody, he signed a waiver and agreed to make a videotaped statement about the courthouse shootings. In his confession, Nichols said he was a soldier on a mission seeking revenge on a judicial system that he believed was unfair to African Americans. He claimed he was about to go to prison for rape he did not commit and was tired of waiting for trial in jail, surrounded by black faces. He detailed how he attacked a female deputy and stole her weapon, then crossed a sky bridge to find the judge in his...
Alright, so look. If he said he didn't do it, then if you're already in jail, you got no choice but to wait. You're making it worse on yourself by doing what you just did, crashing out and doing something like that. If you know you didn't do it, and you know once you get to trial, you'll be proven innocent, then you just gotta take that chance. You're already in jail. It's not many things you could do when you're in jail. You just gotta sit there and wait. If you're innocent, you're innocent, and you'll get proven innocent. But I don't know. He just said he didn't want to wait, so he just decided to do that. That's crazy.
Rape case. He admitted to shooting the judge's court reporter when she checked on the judge. He also admitted to killing a sheriff's sergeant outside the courthouse to make his escape, and later shot a federal agent while trying to steal his car in Buckhead. He even admitted holding Ashley Smith hostage in her apartment before eventually surrendering. Nichols' videotaped confession ultimately helped convict him of his crimes. During the interview, Nichols expressed surprise that the police did not shoot him when he walked out the door. Detective Velasquez described the interview as one of the easiest he had ever done and noted that Nichols was very meticulous and detailed in his account. However, Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard noted that Nichols appeared proud of what he had done and did not show any remorse when he saw him after his arrest. Despite Nichols' confession, his trial was not without controversy. The shooting by Brian Nichols in a courthouse triggered debates about security measures in public buildings, particularly courtrooms. The incident prompted a review of the courthouse's security practices and staffing. Fulton County judges began their security review, followed by a security audit and recommendations by the union representing Fulton County deputies. A task force was subsequently established to investigate courthouse security and propose several measures to improve safety, including installing cameras in all courtrooms, using 2 deputies to escort high-risk inmates, and using special doors in courthouse holding cells. This review led to the dismissal of 8 deputies. The incident highlighted the importance of proper security measures in public buildings to prevent similar tragedies. On May 5, 2005, Brian Nichols was indicted by a Fulton County grand jury on 54 charges, including murder, felony murder, kidnapping, armed robbery, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, theft, carjacking, and escape from authorities. Jury selection began in January 2007, and Nichols' lawyers indicated that they would argue that Nichols was not mentally competent at the time of the crimes. This caused a bit of friction. The pre-trial hearing began in mid-September 2007, with the defense lawyers alleging they weren't receiving enough funding. This was due to various factors, including the Georgia legislature's limitation of state funding for defense attorneys and the prosecution's ongoing interviews with witnesses that the defense had to interview as well. Additionally, the mental health defense made it more complicated. The trial was expected to start on October 2, 2007, but it was postponed due to this lack of funding. Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard announced he would seek the death penalty for...
Doesn't he look like the dude from SmackDown? Damn, I can't spell. Isn't this him? Look, you can't tell me they don't look alike. Look. You can't tell me he does not look like Teddy Long.
for Nichols, making him Georgia's most
back to the
expensive
video.
defendant, with his case likely to exceed $5 million for both the prosecution and defense. The Standards Council assigned Nichols 4 attorneys, and the shootings also depleted the budget for Fulton County, which is responsible for paying at least $10 million in settlement fees to victims' families. Barnes' widow was awarded $5.2 million in a lawsuit, and the county commissioners agreed to pay $5 million to Brando's daughter, Christina Schulte, who also filed a lawsuit. Basically, the rampage of Brian Nichols was making the state of Georgia hemorrhage money. During the court proceedings, Nichols' parents were not immediately available for comment as they were traveling in Africa, where his mother works as a former agent in the Internal Revenue Service. She found out about her son's case through a CNN broadcast while in Tanzania and had contacted Nichols' criminal attorney via email.
Brian was active in the church. He had an excellent job. He lived in a very upscale community. It's something that none of us would have expected. And Brian, when he looks back on it, can't believe that he did it.
Nichols' brother Mark was deeply affected by the incident, stating that everyone knows me as the brother of the person who killed those people. From Nichols' uncle Reginald Smalls to Nichols' daughter, no one could believe he really performed all those acts. In an interview at the start of the death penalty trial, Nichols' father, Gene Nichols, shared his sorrow and the impact the incident has had on their family. He acknowledged that his son was mentally ill at the time of the shooting and is praying that at least one juror decides to spare his son's life. However,
Alright. My fault. But it's like, you know, when I don't want to be talking over the video because it's just some things that need to be heard in the video. But this mental health stuff, that gotta stop. Because, I mean, yeah, some people really are mentally ill. I mean, he was mentally ill. You see what he did. But at the same time, you gotta think, like, he got enough self-awareness. He's aware enough to know what he's doing. He's able to control his actions. He knew what he was doing. He knew he was killing all these people. He knew he was hijacking cars. He knew he was trying to escape the police. He knew when he held that girl in her own bathroom, like, he knew what he was doing. So all that sparing because his mental health, he was mentally ill, like, no, that's not no excuse. Like, he knew what he was doing. At the end of the day, you got to deal with the consequences. You decided to do that, so that's what you got to deal with.
However, he also believes a life sentence in prison could be worse than the death penalty. I really don't know if he's afraid of death, he said of his son. I'm not. Death sometimes is better than living, Nichols said. The trial, prosecution. Several judges recused themselves due to their friendship with the murdered judge. The case was then handed over to Judge Hilton Fuller. However, he eventually disqualified himself in January 2008 due to concerns over judicial impartiality. Fuller stated that he was no longer confident that he could provide a fair trial to both the state and the accused, so the case was moved to another judge. The trial was originally scheduled to take place in July in the same courtroom where 2 of the murders occurred. However, Superior Court Judge James Bodiford, brought in from nearby Cobb County, ruled that fundamental fairness required the trial to be moved to another location in Fulton County within 10 days. However, Brian Nichols' attempt at an escape would not stop. During the period leading up to the trial, it was discovered that Nichols had allegedly plotted a second escape attempt. Reports suggested that he had asked his girlfriend to buy construction tools, including a masonry saw and a circular saw, with the intention of sawing his way out of the Fulton County Jail. An independent investigation uncovered that Nichols had allegedly received direct and indirect help while in custody, including from his girlfriend, 2 deputies who were paid cash for favors, a paralegal who worked for Nichols' lawyers, and Nichols' brother. In an interview with CNN legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin, Judge Fuller stated that the only defense open to Nichols' lawyers was an insanity because everyone in the world knows he did it. This statement was subsequently published in The New Yorker. After 3.5 years of crimes, Nichols' trial began in courtroom 6B of the Atlanta Municipal Court in front of Judge Bodiford on September 22, 2008. Everything was finally picking up as Nichols officially entered his plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. Nichols' defense team moved to delay the trial again, but luckily Judge Botiford refused. Nichols' counsel, a nationally known death penalty litigator from Charlotte, Henderson Hill, acknowledged in his opening statement to the jury that the terrible, almost unspeakable things that happened on March 11th were at Mr. Nichols' hands. He argued instead that Nichols was not guilty by reason of insanity, and that he believed he was in a war where he was a slave rebelling against the United States in plantation politics. A jury of 6 black women, 2 white women, 2 black men, 1 white man, and 1 Asian man were hearing the case. They were selected after a 9-week process in which more than 240 prospective jurors were questioned. During the prosecution's opening, an audio tape of the gunshots that killed Fulton County Superior Court Judge Roland W. Barnes and court reporter Julie Ann Brando was played. Brando's tape recorder left running preserved her last moments of life. The tape, played by lead prosecutor Kelly Hill, began with a moment of regular courtroom tranquility of a lawyer's argument to the court until the first gunshot rang out. Then, the apparent confusion of stunned civil lawyers, and a second shot 4 seconds later. A woman's voice was heard saying, "Don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. Help me. Please don't hurt me." The screams of Barnes' staff attorney were recorded as Brando fell across her, fatally shot through the head. The prosecution stated that Cynthia Hall, Nichols' guard, will not be able to testify at trial due to her severe brain damage. Witnesses testified that she was friendly with Nichols and that he seemed to have won special concessions from her. Unfortunately, that couldn't save her. Nichols admitted to the shootings in a police statement, but he claimed he fired on one of his victims only after the off-duty federal agent pointed a gun at him. The prosecution put forensic expert Ross Gardner on the stand to offer his findings on the crime scene at the Willem home. Willem's Glock pistol was also found undamaged when it was recovered. Gardner contended that a trail in the drywall dust on the floor showed Nichols turning Willem over and dragging him after shooting him. The agent's pockets were turned inside out, as if they had been rifled when he was dying on the house floor. Hill, the prosecutor, called Nichols a conniving, vicious, cold-blooded, remorseless, evil, and extremely dangerous killer who carefully planned the attack and methodically sought out its targets.
Crimes were committed on March 11th, 2005 at the Fulton County Superior Courthouse. And the evidence will show that as he sat at that table with his lawyer, there was a plan devised by a conniving, cold-blooded, remorseless, evil, and extremely dangerous mind.
The prosecution sought to cut away at the defense plea that Nichols was not guilty by reason of insanity. On the stand, Gail Abramson, the former prosecutor who tried Nichols twice in 2005 on charges he raped his former girlfriend, said she never saw any signs of mental illness in Nichols when she met with him and his attorney during the rape trial. The prosecution presented its evidence over 17 days and 76 witnesses, concluding their 54-count case against Brian Nichols on October 14, 2008, by showing autopsy photos of his 4 victims. This case was a heavy, complex, and strenuous one with political implications, but the prosecution was ready for the hammer of the law to take full effect. The trial, defense, and conviction. The defense called Nichols' former girlfriend to the stand as their first witness. She recounted how Nichols had impregnated another woman, leading to the end of their 7-year relationship. The next day, Nichols called her and said he would kill himself because he couldn't handle their breakup. She testified that Nichols continued begging her to reconcile, but about 3 weeks later, she began seeing an assistant pastor at their church. The former girlfriend described a terrifying incident in which Nichols entered her home with 2 guns, duct tape, nunchucks, and lighter fluid. He duct taped her ankles and wrists together and threatened to harm her if she didn't comply. She testified that Nichols raped her and videotaped her naked, but eventually let her go, warning her not to go to the police. This may look counterproductive to the character of Nichols, but the defense used this incident as a foundation to show how Nichols mentally came apart when his former girlfriend broke up with him. Attorney Barry Hazen, who represented Nichols in his previous rape trial, also testified, recounting a meeting he had with Judge Barnes about Nichols' increasingly erratic behavior and dangerous tendencies. Hazen said that Judge Barnes warned him to be careful around Nichols. The defense hopes to use these testimonies to convince the jury that Nichols was not in his right mind at the time of his crimes and, therefore, should not be held accountable. Hazen also testified that Nichols has turned down a plea deal that would have given him 15 years in prison instead of the 25 or more he was likely to get if convicted. Nichols believed that he could win over the jury in the second trial, the same way he had in the first trial. Hazen told the court that Nichols' behavior gave rise to my thought, there's something wrong with this guy. The defense also called psychiatrist Mark Cunningham to the stand to testify about Nichols' mental state. Cunningham presented a college essay that Nichols wrote in 1992, which laid out his beliefs that there is an organized and deliberate attempt by whites to eradicate the black race by imprisoning black men and keeping them from having children. Nichols also argued that violence was necessary to defend the human rights of dark-skinned people worldwide. Cunningham said those beliefs were the seeds of what later became a delusional disorder for Nichols. In the essay, Bryan wrote, "If violence can be a righteous tool for the white man, then surely it can be used as a righteous tool for the black man. If violence can be used to murder defenseless women and children in South Africa and Vietnam, then surely it can be used to defend the human rights of dark-skinned people all over the world." Nichols also compared the conditions of his confinement in the Fulton County Jail to slavery and referred to his white judge, Roland Barnes, as a slave master. He eventually became so delusional that he thought he was at war with the government and did not know right from wrong. Nichols even confessed to feeling like a slave rebelling against the government of the United States, and that it was his right to declare war on the United States government. An excerpt from Nichols' confession in which he said, "I felt as though I was a slave with them. As a soldier, I don't feel like I committed any war crimes. There was no collateral damage." Cunningham also revealed that Nichols had a difficult childhood, and his parents were emotionally distant due to their work schedules. His father also drank alcohol and smoked marijuana, which led to Nichols abusing the same substance.
Oh my God. Is that Kai? You cannot tell me that does not look like Kai. Tell me that doesn't look like Kai.
As a child. Furthermore, Nichols was sexually abused by a cousin and his older brother and was bullied as a child. These childhood traumas carried forward into adulthood, according to Cunningham. After 2 days of deliberation, the jurors found Nichols guilty of all 54 counts on November 7, 2008. The judge, Bodiford, warned everyone in attendance that any emotional outburst would result in a contempt of court finding and up to 20 days in jail. Nevertheless, some spectators burst into tears after hearing the verdicts. On December 13, 2008, Nichols received 37 consecutive maximum sentences that included multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. His sentence totaled hundreds of years behind bars. There's no point doing the maths because whatever the number, one thing was certain: Bryan Gene Nichols will die behind bars. The only reason Nichols was spared multiple death sentences was because the jury failed to reach a unanimous decision, as required by Georgia law.
He's in a cell that stretches this far. That's it. He doesn't have to get out of his bed to reach to the other side. He cannot even exercise on the floor. He can't lay down and exercise. He gets out 3 times a week for a shower. That's his life for the rest of his life.
The sentence was severe, but it reflected the severity of the crimes that Nichols had committed. Nichols blamed his actions on weed and drugs.
I think I was delusional. I think that drugs and alcohol played a part in those delusions. If there's something that
take accountability for what you did, man.
Talk, it will be to recognize and understand the harm that marijuana can do.
But he...
Listen, I'm not taking... There's gonna be no slander of the marijuana in here. I'm not tolerating it. No slander. Cause, like, just be real. Who? Matter of fact, yeah, the video is almost over. I'm gonna save it.
He was remorseful after the judgment was passed.
I don't want to cause any more damage what I have already done, and that's the main reason why I've always remain quiet. I did some very bad things. I pray and I ask for forgiveness.
Still, in his voice, there's a deep regret for his actions, drug-induced or not.
If I could go back and do things differently, of course I would. I can't play the hand that I wish I was dealt. I have to play the hand that I have.
The families of the victims expressed relief that justice had been served, but they would never forget the pain and loss that they had suffered. It was clear that Nichols' actions had caused immeasurable harm to many people, and justice demanded a harsh response. The trial might be over, but the memories of the victims will live on forever. Thanks for watching. Click on the screen for more videos like this.
Chill, bro, chill. Oh. Shout out Dior. But look, so what I was saying was the marijuana, like, I personally haven't seen it. I mean, maybe some people can't handle it. 'Cause I know there's some people that smoke and they start panicking. You just shouldn't be smoking. If you're smoking and you get high and you start panicking, you shouldn't be smoking. But I said that to say this. You were blaming marijuana on the actions that you've done. But, like, who... Alright, the alcohol, I can see, because, you know, some people get blacked out drunk. They start doing some crazy stuff. So, alright, you could blame the alcohol. But who is smoking weed so much that they go out and commit some crazy crimes? I mean, it's life, so I mean, yeah, it could have happened, but what are the odds of that happening compared to somebody who's got an alcoholic problem and going out there and, you know, doing all that? But that is the end of this video. If you made it to the end, I appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe. More reactions on the way. Let me know how you felt about this in the comments. Maybe another upload from me today. If not, tomorrow we'll be back with another video.